Hello, everyone. Dr. Joseph Capps coming back to you again with another episode of Dancing with the Darkness. This is our podcast and YouTube channel. Those of you that are hopping on here for the very first time, welcome. So great to have you. Uh, this is going to be a channel that is basically a raw and unfiltered account of living with CPTSD. We talk about everything from birth all the way up to where you are now. How did we get here? What causes us to act the way that we do in relationships and in life? We talk about subjects like abuse, depression, anxiety, and we also talk about PTSD and some operator syndrome because it's very similar and comorbid with each other. This channel isn't just clinical stuff. It's really based a lot on my own experiences in my own life, and we talk a lot about God because that's who saved me. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, I hope that you'll tune into this video and you'll check out the rest of the channel. We're approaching 100 subscribers, which is a really big deal for the channel, to start from nothing and to get here. And I hope that those subscribers that are tuning in every week, that I'm putting content on here that is good for you, helps you in your walk, helps you in your life, helps you understand that you're not alone. That's the only reason I'm here. This is an effort to turn my own pain into purpose, which is the ultimate form of healing in our healing journey, but also to form a community of individuals that don't feel like they have to walk alone in all of the wonderful things that we deal with CPTSD. And lastly, it's a message of hope. I wouldn't be on here and wouldn't even be able to do this channel if I hadn't experienced some amazing healing and being able to turn pain into purpose and learning how to not just survive, but to thrive in life. Even though it happened to me later in life, that doesn't matter. It's never too late for restoration. It's never too late for redemption. It's never too late for you to have a better life and a more quality life. So the past couple videos, if you've been tuning in, we've been talking pretty aggressively about the day-to-day journey and what it looks like to have CPTSD. We talked about some hidden things that pop up that maybe we weren't aware of. If there's people on the channel that are listening because they're trying to understand a loved one, or they're trying to, understand how they can care for somebody or support somebody with CPTSD better. There's a lot on here for you too, because we're trying to help educate not only ourselves but other people about the nuances and about the things that we deal with CPTSD and why. We carry a lot of false guilt and shame based on these things, and that's another real big motivator for me, is to try to help other people get rid of some of the shame and guilt. I've carried it for years, and we get older and we get tired. We talked about that in our last video about how we start to become a little less of an empath, and we start to have a little bit less tolerance, and we are just tired physically, mentally, and spiritually, and that doesn't make us bad people. It just helps us set healthier boundaries so that we can live a healthier life. And so I'm going to kind of keep on this subject, and I just want to talk about some very similar things, but I want to talk about specifically why these things happen. These are individuals, with CPTSD, we're not talking about one traumatic event. We're talking about polytrauma. We're talking about most likely you have grown up in a trauma environment, and because of that, it programmed you to end up in more trauma in life because of the patterns, because this is where we end up feeling comfortable, whether you went on one side of the spectrum, like I did, and did military first responder stuff, because we almost become addicted to trauma and to the adrenaline and all of the things that we grew up in, but it also goes full circle, and being in an abusive relationship, for a long time, or several abusive relationships, and I guess God gives us these experiences so that we can share them with others, and I just happen to be one of the rare individuals in these categories where I've kind of experienced a little bit of all of it. And we're going to talk about what that does to us, so that you don't feel alone in your walk, and that you understand yourself a little bit better. Have you ever wondered why you push people away, even the ones that you love? You get anxious when life finally feels calm. These aren't personality flaws, okay? This is part of the deal living with CPTSD. And we've talked about this before in our videos. These are some hidden traits that basically somebody who is carried, way too much pain for way too long, and we get to a point where we just can't anymore. Maybe no one ever told you this today as you're watching this video, but the way that we protect ourselves today, this was formed and shaped by pain that we have survived yesterday, okay, and the day before, and the day before, and the day before. People like us don't break loudly. We adapt, and we do it quietly, okay? We build habits that look strange from the outside, but actually they are the ones that have kept us alive. And the truth is, most of these habits aren't random. Okay, they're not random habits at all. These are survival codes that are literally written into our brain, written into our nervous system. This has almost become our instinct. It's not unlike, an animal that gets caught in a trap. It instinctually will gnaw its leg off or its limb off to get away. It doesn't think about that immediate pain. It doesn't think about, hey, this is going to hurt. Its survival mechanism takes over, and it will do whatever it can to survive. In this video, what I want to talk about is, I want us to slow down for a second. I want us to breathe, and I want us to walk through some hidden traits that we develop when we've suffered way too much, okay? As you listen to this video, you may realize something that's life-changing. And what my hope and prayer is today is that you realize that you're not too much. You're not too much for the world or for other people. It's not like you have too much drama, or you're unlovable, or you're never going to be loved. I want us to put that away and get rid of it, because it's the worst lie that we've been told, and what we're telling ourselves. We're not hard to love either, okay? That's another lie that we've been told, that's been burnt into our nervous system. And this is one of the reasons why we push away, okay, is why we're going to get into this. We are just simply someone who had to become strong in ways that the world never saw and probably never understands. Unless you've been through it, you don't understand. The first thing I want to talk about, which we've mentioned before in videos, is hyper independence, okay? And, I was thinking about my own life this week and how I still have a lot of that hyper independence in there. And so some of the things that I wrote down that really apply to me is that, we may feel like we're looking heroic, when we do these things on our own. Like we're, Superman or whatever, especially, when my kids were little, I really wanted to just be larger than life in their eyes. I think that, most fathers feel that way. The problem is, it doesn't really look heroic anymore. When we get older, it actually looks exhausting. People who have suffered too much, we become fiercely and painfully independent, and it's really not healthy. It's not a healthy mechanism at all. We'll tell people, I'm fine, I've got this, I don't need your help. And, I think of things like stupid stuff that I've done, like moving heavy furniture by myself and, hurting my back. I still do this every freaking week. I don't know why, with the exception of my son. I try to carry in every single grocery bag. So, I look like this freaking donkey that's hiking up a mountain with all these saddlebags on them. And I don't know why I do that still. when I can easily just take a manageable load and go back and get another load. But something burned inside of me is like, oh man, I got to get all these bags, so I load up like a pack mule and come into the house. Constantly refuse help doing things when, anybody else would realize without any lack of, it's not like you would be getting rid of your ego or pride. You have enough common sense to know, guess what? This is a job for two people. But what do? We do things and we work so hard and we are so fiercely independent that a lot of times it'll end up affecting our health. And then we don't realize that we've actually done more damage simply by not being able to ask for help, okay? This isn't confidence either, okay? It's not confidence and it's not arrogance, okay? So that's what I want you to understand. There's a distinct difference between arrogance and confidence, and with us, with CPTSD, it's neither one of those, okay? So from somebody on the outside looking in, they may think that we're being cocky, or they may think that we're confident, I can do this, but really what it is it's fear, and we need to understand exactly what it is. This is fear, and it's dressed up like it's competence, but it's really an underlying fear. And this starts in childhood, okay? It starts in childhood because when you asked for help as a kid, this led to some extreme disappointment. It didn't just lead to disappointment, but it led to criticism. I'm thinking about as a child, how dependent I had to be. I look at this generation now, and I look at my own children, and I'm like, how in the hell did I do what I did at the ages I was at? Okay, I was basically taking care of myself with no babysitter at 6 years old. And then at 9, I was pretty much freaking doing everything at 9 years old. I was cooking my own meals, doing my own laundry, cleaning my room, waking myself up in the morning with an alarm clock, taking care of animals, and walking to the bus stop, okay? All on my own volition, okay? And it's because of the environment I was in. I was terrified. If I asked for any kind of help, if I acted like I was helpless or anything like that, or I didn't do all of the little things on that checklist, I was going to receive either some very severe verbal and psychological abuse, or I could even get some physical abuse. Okay, that's the house that I grew up in. There was going to be punishment. There was going to be consequences. So the brain, basic neuroscience, over time, it learns that this is a dangerous lesson, okay? Needing help inside of our psyche, the reflexive thought, is unsafe. It's just not a safe thing, okay? And so, in psychology, we call this self-reliance trauma, which it's, we like to coin terms, we like to label things, okay? But basically our nervous system, it's treating vulnerability, any kind of vulnerability that we have, it treats it like a threat, okay? And that's why even gentle support sometimes, it feels very uncomfortable, okay? It's like you're stepping on thin ice, okay, or eggshells. And the saddest part here is that hyper-independent people don't push others away because they don't care. They push them away because they're terrified of needing someone and being let down again, okay? You become vulnerable, you finally ask for help, you finally, allow someone to be in a position to help you, and you get lied to, or people don't show up, or they don't keep their word, or, or worse, you get hurt, okay? And this isn't everyone's fault on the outside. This has a lot to do with us and the patterns that we live, and the fact that we unfortunately surround ourselves with individuals that are going to do that, okay? And so all we're doing, if you tried to use cognitive behavioral therapy with somebody with CPTSD, it's very difficult, because when you're telling us to test our beliefs based on evidence, a lot of times that's a shooting yourself in the foot situation, because the evidence supports exactly what we believe. Oh, you want me to look at the evidence? Well, the evidence says that every person I've ever asked for help, every person I've ever opened up to, every person that I've cared about or I've allowed myself to have feelings for, they have effed me over in a major way, okay? And a huge part of that is because we've unintentionally, because of our patterns, because of how we were brought up, because of the way we are wired and our nervous system has learned to adapt, we end up in situations with people that there's a 95% chance that they're going to do that because they are narcissistic, or they are psychotic, or that they just don't have a good moral, ethical, or value system. Okay, and so we're tainting the results. Okay, basically it's kind of like pharmaceutical companies do when they do it. They try to peddle a medication. They're tainting the results. Okay, and I get myself in trouble a lot talking about that, but I am no fan of medications. I've seen too much damage done. But it's basically that same way. If I know that a 24-year-old Caucasian male is going to respond positively to my drug, then when I do a trial, I'm going to make sure I have 200 guys that are 24 that are Caucasian. Okay, and so this unfortunately is what happens to us, as we end up putting ourselves in situations where there's a very high likelihood of the people that we're surrounding ourselves with are going to do these things, which once again is reinforcing that hyper independence. If this sounds familiar, then this next one is probably going to resonate with you too. Okay, discomfort with small talk. Okay, now I want to be very definitive with this. Okay, because I am a very social person, and I have a love-hate relationship with people, as most people with CPTSD do, because we want affirmation and we want acceptance and we want love and all of these things, but at the same time we're constantly on guard. Okay, now when it gets to small talk, it gets kind of dicey, and I'm going to talk about why. If we've been through some really heavy pain, we don't really do well with light conversations. Okay, it's because if it's gossip or if it's like service level chit chat, it's just difficult. And the reason why is it's not that we're rude or we're not social. It's the fact that and we're not like above everyone. I don't want you to think that it's a superiority thing. It's very simple. Our mind has been wired in a way that we only want to focus on things that are really important or actually important. Okay, so idle conversation, gossip, whatever it is, it just sounds very, very frivolous and fruitless, and we don't want to expend energy on it because energy is quite the commodity for us. Okay, we deal with a lot of fatigue, we deal with a lot of loss of energy. And so, when you've lived through years and years of chaos, betrayal, loneliness, or emotional neglect even, okay, why would talking about someone's new coffee machine, I got this new Keurig, why would that feel meaningful for us? Okay, it makes sense. It's not meaningful. Okay. Sometimes we will be the one that sits kind of quiet at a party. We have trouble engaging sometimes. We may drift to a corner group conversation that's out of the spotlight. We know how to smile politely, which, we can be open to people and it's attractive because we look like we're welcoming by our actions. But really, we're feeling completely and totally disconnected is what the real truth is inside of us. Okay. What people misunderstand is that we don't hate conversation at all. We crave it very, very much, but we crave depth. We crave a conversation that's meaningful and fruitful and involves passion or something that we're passionate about, something, where we can share something that's more intimate or meaningful about ourselves or someone else. Okay. We need a real topic, something that's honest, not frivolous or fruitless or ridiculous. We want to talk about something that's meaningful. Fears, dreams, heartbreak, suddenly they're fully alive, right? Fully present. Our soul leans in. It just likes to lean in when the mask comes off, if that makes sense. Researchers in psychology and in neuroscience and so forth, they like to call this what's called depth-seeking behavior. Once again, we like to label things, okay? And the only reason I'm throwing these terms at you is because you may this may really resonate with you and you want to go deeper into it. And so you can look up depth-seeking behavior and you can get a lot more intel on that if you're looking to go deeper with that. This is very common. It's a survival strategy for people that have had to deal with what's called emotional overwhelm. Our brain figures out how it can filter out anything that doesn't feel real or safe. Okay? And once we understand this, the next thing that I'm going to talk about starts to make more sense. Okay? So the next thing that we like to do is it's not that we like to do it. This is just who we become. Okay? We've talked about how we become empathic and we become, we have a lot of empathy, but this is more of a quiet empathy. It's not something that like, hello, I'm empathic. You don't shout it out. It's very, very quiet. It's a very, very quiet form. When you've suffered a lot, we can become experts at reading the room. This is how highly sensitive that we are. We pick up on the tiny things that everyone else misses, okay? We'll see the person in the room that has a forced smile, or we'll see somebody's shoulders drop like they're looking sullen before they can even say to us the same thing that we would say, I'm fine. We already know. We can already sense the tension. We can already see the pain in this person before they even speak. And this is, I know in my own life, this is an uncanny thing that I either find these people or they find me. It doesn't, I have been ridiculed by my spouse before because it doesn't matter where we are. The same thing goes with other veterans or first responders. It seems like no matter where I go, we always find each other. And I think that we're giving off some kind of secret code. I don't know what it is, but people will find me and they will be complete strangers and they will tell me their deepest, darkest secrets. They don't even know me and they will immediately start opening up to me. And this is, it's because we're safe. And I think that once you pick up on that radio station with someone else and because you're desperately seeking it, we end up in situations like that. We can, we find the person that looks lonely. And it's not that we're wanting to fix them, okay? It's not what this is about. I cannot tell you how many times that I have also been ridiculed about that, you're trying to fix everyone. And they don't understand. It's not like that at all. It's an invisible radio wave. I believe in things like heart math and other things that have scientific evidence that prove that we have a magnetic field, and sometimes we just pick up on that. And I think that, I don't think that this is so much a curse anymore. I think it's a gift. I think that our God is a God of love, and he is a God of caring and restoration and redemption. And I think that if he puts some of that in us, and it allows us to pick up on these individuals and we can brighten their day or we can make them feel less alone or whatever it is. I think that it's a mutually beneficial situation oftentimes because us helping them helps us. We don't like to see people do what I just described earlier. We will see the person that's sitting in silence in the room just like we were maybe a minute ago. And it's not that we're trying to fix them. It's that we know what this feels like to be alone and to be in that circumstance. And there's something inherently in us that we don't want them to have to deal with that as well. And so we often will approach them and strike up a conversation. And here's the thing that most people do not realize, especially if you don't understand what I'm talking about with CPTSD and trauma and all of the things that made us who we are, okay? We don't just see the emotions often in people. We actually absorb them. And this is why I talked about in the last video about how we have to be very careful and we have to start creating some boundaries for ourselves. Because this is a kind of empathy that is so intense and so overwhelming. And it's because it has come from surviving situations where reading people correctly was necessary, okay, for safety, predicting moods, avoiding conflict. And honestly, preventing abuse or emotional explosions. We grew up this way with our parents, navigating, fawning, zigging when we had to, and zagging when we had to, because it was survival. Okay, and we talked about this before in some videos about how that ends up leaving us open for some severe abuse, because we start doing some other trauma responses beyond fawning, because we're trying to survive. We allow horrific things to happen to us. I say we allow them to happen. Most of the time, we were children and we were helpless and we couldn't have stopped it anyway. But we dissociate and we get into a survival mechanism where, hey, if I just do this, I can survive this situation. Okay, and so all of this has wired us and made us who we are, and we need to understand that. There are studies out there that suggest survivors often develop hyperactive mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are very, very real. These are the neurons that we're developing as a baby. When your parents are smiling at you or googling at you or whatever, you're doing it back because you're learning how to navigate and explore your world. You're learning that if I go hee hee hee, I get this, and if I cry, I get a bottle. Okay, so these mirror neurons, this is necessary. This is part of our development. But when we're in a very abusive environment, these mirror neurons just go crazy, and we develop way more mirror neurons than normal, and this is what allows us to be kind of a fawner and a chameleon and to survive. And then we go into adulthood, and we need to be conscious of this because we're still doing it, and it's very, very hyperactive. Okay. It makes us feel like emotions almost kind of do whatever they want on their own, that we have no control of them. Okay, so this is why sometimes we need some time alone after we're in social gatherings, because it's not us trying to withdraw, but we have to empty out or try to get rid of everything that we've soaked up. Okay, because we're absorbing these things, we're mirroring, and we're doing all of these things. And it's very taxing and it's very exhausting. So, outside looking in, if we're looking at how they cope, this next thing that I'm going to say really, really becomes clear.
Guys, I don't know what kind of magic this is, but these glasses are going to adapt you.
And so, these are all going to be adaptive situations. And we need to understand that it's part of the CPTSD, okay? And so now that we've gotten into this situation where we need to withdraw and we need to empty out, okay? And so what does this look like? We need to find some positive outlets for this. I tend to try to come home and get into the garage and exercise, trying to get some positive endorphins, okay? We need to find some good ways to be able to empty out. Read your Bible, talk to a friend, that isn't going to drain you, that's going to fill you. There's lots of ways that we can do that. Another thing that we like to do, and this is synonymous with military members and with first responders especially, we call it gallows humor, but we do have kind of a dark sense of humor. I always manifest, especially if I'm at work, and I'm in a stressful situation, I will often manifest that stress by being a complete idiot, honestly. Very, very goofy, telling stupid jokes, whatever, laughing, joking. And a lot of times that is me not only trying to be better for the room and to set the temperature of the room, but it's also self-medicating because I am trying to also take care of myself. And this is a subconscious thing, and it's because, when we're doing this, we are releasing some positive hormones, and these positive hormones are very intentional with what they do. They are literally lowering the effects of cortisol and the other stress hormones that have come along and put us in this state. Okay, this isn't a sign of us being disrespectful. It's not us being rude. It's not us being insensitive. It truly is a survival mechanism, and that's why when you see people of the same demographic, when you get some Marines together, or you get some police together, or whatever, they will kind of feed off of each other with that, because it's a coping mechanism. They've seen some horrific things. They've been through some difficult times, and so smoking and joking, we used to call it in the military, is a way for us to cope. It's not us being insensitive or rude or any of those things. We need to understand that this is a normal part of it, and it's because the pain that we've been through is so enormous. Even neuroscience shows that activities in the same brain regain and reduce the level of cortisol, like I said. So this is actually, there's science behind this as to why we need to do this. People who have suffered too much rarely feel relaxed. This is another thing that I deal with all the time. I don't feel relaxed literally until I'm going to pass out. I feel like if there's any idle time, that I need to be productive, I need to be accomplishing something, I need to be doing something, and I'm sure that you are also doing that. This is kind of a low-level hypervigilance. We are constantly looking in the background, and so this also explains, why we are the person that sits in a certain place in church or in the restaurant. We walk a certain way with our family. We will analyze text messages, overanalyze them, and wonder if we've offended someone or if we've done something wrong. The thing is, if peace itself is going to seem suspicious, hypervigilance really isn't paranoia, is it? Okay? It's conditioning. And that's what we need to understand. We've lived through some unpredictable pain. Our nervous system has learned that it needs to stay ready. And this is the part that, really breaks the heart. Okay? This is what's quietly breaking our heart, is that good moments almost stress us out more than the bad moments. And this is a sad realization when we get to this, and it hurts to realize that, okay? But it's because of our past. Calm was not safe. Calm was the warning before the storm. It often meant that things were going to explode, and it was going to be volatile, and it was going to be really, really bad. And so, the brain of a survivor, if chaos is familiar, if peace feels foreign, and foreign feels dangerous, okay, it causes cognitive dissonance. So the very thing that we desperately crave, which is calm and peace and love and all of these things, when we finally start getting it, it becomes very, very uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar. We've never experienced it. It feels foreign and it feels like a stranger. And that's why we deal with that. When it's not because our body hasn't realized the war is over. It's because our mind is still fighting a war that's over. And that's what we need to understand. So, these things that we've talked about are part of us. And I want you to understand that they can absolutely get better. We can work through these things and they can be less prevalent in our life. But the first step is we have to be aware of them. We need to understand where they came from, that this is part of us. None of these patterns mean that you're broken. They mean that you have adapted. It's very simple. You have adapted, you've survived, and you've survived moments that no one else has seen, and your mind has built tools to keep you safe. And even if those tools don't always make sense to other people or even to yourself, this is what has happened. And this is how we got here, okay? Maybe for the first time after watching this video, you're realizing that the way you move through the world has a story behind it, and that's great. It's not a story of failure, it's a story of strength. And that's what I want you to understand. You don't have to stop being who you are, but you can start learning which traits come from pain and which parts of you are finally ready for peace. If any part of this video today resonates with you, what I would love for you to do is to put it in the comments. Maybe it's all of the things I've talked about. Maybe it's one of them. But if something's resonated with you, I would love for you to put it in the comments. And it's not 100% that I want it in the comments for me. It's for our brothers and sisters that have CPTSD. There could be something that you share in these comments or something that you put in there from the heart that could literally save someone's life today or help someone to not feel alone, to understand that we are a community, we are a family. Not only do we have each other, but we have a loving God in heaven. So this is not a message to discourage you. It's a message to encourage you, to help you understand, why do we do the things that we do? And by realizing that, we can be more conscious of it and we can start to make some positive changes. I want to thank everybody for showing up today. As always, for this video, we will see you next week. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and share. We are finally growing on this channel, which is great because with growth means more people out there in this community get this message of hope, and that's the only reason that we're here. God bless everyone, and we will see you next time.